Hey everybody, Dirili here. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Amnesia Memories. And we have finished all of the guys, and today, and the last episode, we did all of the memories of section, which were short stories of all the guys that were memories during the actual routes. And now I realize that in the extras, they each have these other short stories. And I don't know how long these ones are, and I don't know anything about them, but let's see. Okay, I'll do these in the order that I played the guys in, just like I did with the other things. So we're starting with my darling Kent. Okay, and this is actually read from Kent's point of view, so I had to start it over again. Whether I should go to return this umbrella today or not, that was the question at hand. The sky was visible from the laboratory windows and was spotted with clouds. Rain from this morning had ceased, come early afternoon, and it was bright outside, despite it being the middle of the rainy season. She would probably not need this umbrella. Even so, should I return it to her? For a question that was not worth pondering, I had for some reason been contemplating it for quite some time. The first problem of the day was whether I should take a walk despite the rain. The me of last year would have not. The reason for my daily strolls was only for maintaining good health, and if not for training, it was certainly not a job. There was no overwhelming reason in favor of walking out in the rain. My reason for hesitating was due to the image of the girl I would meet in the morning suddenly coming to mind. She would most likely come. Her walk in the mornings was for her dog. It was almost an obligation. There was a high probability she would go, even in the rain. I had seen confirmation of that in similar situations before. Using this as a basis, I considered whether I should go on. In other words, did I want to meet her or not? I deliberated for some time, then tired of contemplating the issue and simply decided to leave. I put the question of whether I wanted to meet her or not on hold. That was this morning. Walking even in this rain? Good for you. Sure enough, she was there, and she spoke to me in a somewhat sarcastic tone. I don't want to be sarcastic. Managing to keep pace next to her, without thinking, I returned the sarcasm. You're also determined enough to walk your dog that you'd put it in a raincoat. How very diligent of you. Oh, I'm walking my little doggy in a raincoat. The dog, wrapped up in a yellow raincoat, looked up at me with round eyes. I wondered if it was conscious of being spoken about. I thought this for a while, but the recent trend of treating dogs like humans is absurd. Is a raincoat necessary for a dog? It is a species that was originally born to live with fur. There is no reason to dress dogs the same way as humans, who have evolved with the need for clothes. People say dogs are their family, but is including them simply a means to ease the loneliness of lacking a nuclear family in the modern world? To me, it is simply a sham. Thank you for your very important opinion. After once again responding with sarcasm, she gave a strained smile. As you said, my dog probably doesn't need a raincoat, but it's convenient to put him in it anyway. It's easier to wash him afterwards this way. Oh, I see. It's a question of convenience. I can agree with that. I truly was agreeing with her logic, but she seemed to take this as yet another attempt at mockery. She fell silent, puffing her cheeks out. I fell silent as well at her childish expression. Why did I cause her to make such a face? Why would she not smile? Why was my gaze pulled towards her presumably upset expression? The way she was wearing a white poncho in the place of an umbrella, or the way her bag was dangling from underneath in a manner where it would not be in the way, why did such little details remain burned in my vision? Every time I met her, I was consumed by these sort of questions. Do you not need to use an umbrella? Your appearance is rather childish. The topic I chose to change the subject only seemed to further upset her. Sorry I'm so childish. I use 2 hands to hold his leash, so I need both of them free. I see. A fair amount of forethought indeed. I doubt I could own a dog. If you think so, then you probably shouldn't own one. I would feel bad for the dog, too. I didn't understand why our conversations became so caustic. I was somewhere, somehow, pushing on the wrong buttons. I understood this much, but I had no idea how to fix things. What would make her smile? As I pondered this and looked down at her, She glared back for some reason. She might have thought I was glaring at her. I was finding myself at a loss when I heard a voice cry, "Ah!" from behind us. Turning around, I saw a young girl with a tearful expression looking down at the river flowing next to the walkway. It was simple to tell what happened by following her line of vision. A red umbrella was sailing away on the river. "Did your umbrella get blown away?" She also had become aware of the girl's state. When called to, the child looked over, scrunching her eyebrows.
"What do I do? My umbrella, it washed away."
"It did, huh? Just a moment." I looked on, puzzled, as she pulled back her sleeves. She was possibly trying to take off her poncho. What was she thinking? She must be joking. It was much better that I got wet than let her return home drenched. Thankfully, the rain was light. "Use this." Before she was able to say anything, I thrust my umbrella towards the young girl.
"But, mister, won't you get wet?"
I'm not so weak that this amount of rain would affect me. My house is close by as well. I heard that children catch cold easily if they are soaked for too long. If that is the case, it is better that you use this umbrella. However, you'll have to be more careful this time, so that it won't get blown away.
I can give..."
I controlled her attempt to get a word in with a stare. "I can't imagine that you're as sturdy as I am. Your house was, if I recall, further away from here. Therefore, it is much more efficient for me to give her my umbrella here."
"What? But..."
"You don't need to be so insistent about it. Besides that, now that I give him my umbrella, I'd like to return home, but..."
"Oh, that's not what I..."
"Enough. You go along now." The young child, who had been looking conflicted, seemed pressured by my words and grabbed the umbrella. She was probably considering whether or not it was all right to accept something from an unknown man, as much as a child could consider such a thing.
"Thank you."
After having opened the umbrella, immense size wholly unfitting to her, the child gave an unsteady bow and ran off. It seemed difficult for her to run with such a large umbrella. It may have been that the wind's resistance was too strong. Perhaps allowing her to give the child her poncho and then having her borrow my umbrella would have been much more efficient after all. While I regretted the error of my decision, the girl beside me pulled up her poncho, even though there was no longer any need. "What are you doing?"
"Please, listen to me. I have an umbrella."
She spoke as if angered, and from underneath her poncho she produced a folding umbrella. "Please, use this." It was too late for me to realize that this was what she was trying to convey earlier.
"You'll catch a cold. Please hurry and open it."
I accepted the bluish-gray folding umbrella decorated with a droplet pattern and opened it. I had erred after all. I should have listened to her properly and allowed her to give this to the child. Why did I always miscalculate my decisions when she was involved?
"I'm sure we'll meet again tomorrow, so you can just return it then. And I don't need any thanks. I was planning to give it to her anyway. Just return it tomorrow. Also, you're getting soaked, Kent, so you should take a proper shower when you get home. If you had just listened to me, I would have been able to pull it out earlier."
As she spoke, she rapidly glanced over with a sullen look and added in a small voice,
"Still, I never expected you to do such a thing, Kent. You're nice."
Am I nice? Hadn't I made a very large mistake in judgment? Shouldn't I have listened to you? While I sincerely pondered over these thoughts, she turned around swiftly.
"Anyway, both of us should head home for today."
"Yes, you're right." This amount of rain was of little consequence to me, but I was not eccentric enough to walk around town with a woman's umbrella. Watching her bobbing white form walk off, I sincerely felt that I had erred in my decision. I had barely talked to her today. Why had I even come here?
"You were being nice and considerate, and you wanted to see me."
I don't know. I didn't want to answer that yet. Either way, that was the reason I was in possession of her umbrella. I was told to return it tomorrow, so it was fine to wait. And whether for better or worse, the rain had stopped with the forecast for tomorrow being sunny. Until the time I would meet her tomorrow, she would not find herself in need of this umbrella. And yet, the reason my eyes trailed to my cell phone was because if I had said I would return it, I would be able to meet her again today. Since I was unable to see her for very long in the morning, I would be able to speak to her a little more if I did, even if it would simply end in another quarrel. Why did I hesitate, even already knowing the outcome? Why was my urge to meet her so great that I concocted reasons for it? Each time I asked myself this, I would suppress the barely visible answer deep into my heart. Am I possibly in love with her? Impossible. As I was on the verge of veering into a train of thought I shouldn't follow, there was a light knock on the laboratory door, followed by its opening.
"Ken, hide me!"
The man who spoke sharply as he came in was my friendly rival, Ikkyu. Closing the door behind him, he quickly began looking behind desks and glancing around the laboratory in an attempt to hide. There was only one reason I could give for his desperation. It was a woman. "Are you being chased?"
"Yes, by quite a few. In fact, you'd be surprised at the amount."
Ikkyu had barely managed to find a gap to squeeze into when suddenly the door swung open without a knock.
Is Iki here?
How noisy. The uninvited guests were 3 female college students. Iki's fan club, I presume. As they had rudely barged into the laboratory wearing ridiculously flashy clothes, I responded to them curtly. "He's not here. Leave." Perhaps surprised by my forwardness, the 3 stopped in their tracks.
Are you sure?
What a ridiculous question. I'm busy. Leave. The effect was immediate. Looking defeated, the trio shuffled their way back out. Ikkyu suffers from hardships as well, having to deal with fans without even a shred of common courtesy. After some time had passed, the door closed. Ikkyu appeared again, coupled with a sigh.
"Thanks, and that was a big help."
"Why were you being chased?"
"Well, I was asked to help with an assignment they didn't understand, but when I refused, they started to chase me. It was actually pretty shocking."
"I had thought you fond of going along with women's advances, but I see there are times when you turn them down as well."
"I have my preferences."
It was unexpected for him to look so proud as he said this. I thought he didn't have preferences when it came to women, and the members of the previous trio were by normal standards rather beautiful. "Ikkyu, let me ask you, is it generally annoying for one to use such small reasons as excuses to spend time with someone?" Of course, the umbrella was on my mind when I asked this, though it applied to his situation as well. Ikkyu lightly tilted his head.
"I don't know about it in general, but if it was a girl that I liked, I would be happy to see her."
"Is that how it is?"
"That's how it is."
I wondered if she thought of me as a desirable partner. I had a feeling this was improbable. How does one deduce that another sees one as desirable? For instance, if a woman who was interested in you were to decide whether or not to converse with you, on what factors would she base her decision?
Deciding on whether to approach someone? Well, let's see. For me, the kind of girl I like to talk to is someone with whom I can have a pleasant conversation.
That was too broad a category. Then I felt some disgust at the fact that I did not fit even so broad a category. Is it a nuisance to be approached by someone you regularly devolve into arguments with?
Of course it's a nuisance. Use your common sense. What exactly are you trying to ask?
Nothing really. I dodged and carefully pushed the umbrella into a less visible position. Then let me rephrase the question. Is the desire to create small excuses in order to meet someone indicative of romantic feelings?
I don't know. I think the girls just now were more curious than anything else. Well, I suppose it may be the start of falling in love.
While tilting his neck, Ikkyu further bent his waist, as if trying to peer at my face.
I seriously doubt this, but are you in love with someone?
Impossible. With this one-word denial, without the slightest hint of suspicion, he murmured,
Oh, of course not.
Were a romantic and I seen as that disparate from one another? I figured as much. Even I could see it. I considered that she was 7 years my junior, that we weren't on very good terms, and the whole idea came to look ridiculous.
Aw, it's so sad. I didn't know he was that much older than me, though.
Of course it was impossible. She would probably think it a nuisance. I put down the cell phone I was about to dial and pushed it toward the umbrella. I didn't have to think about it. If I was told that this was love, I would have no idea what to do. That was why I wouldn't call her. I would no longer give thought to the umbrella. No matter how much anxiety I felt waiting for the next day, it simply must be a trick of the mind. That was what it had to be.
But, Ken, just so you know, I'm pretty sure love isn't all logic.
I pretend not to hear EQ's generously given advice and shoved the umbrella deep into the gap between my books so that I would no longer give any more thought to her. I hadn't realized that this was the problem in and of itself. I think that leaves us enough time to put Shin's story in with this. Oh, I don't know. I like hearing Kent when he's more affectionate and happy being with us. It's sad hearing him be in denial about how he feels, like not understanding things back then. I want these stories to be afterwards, not in the beginning. Let's see if there's any other happy ones. Alright, Shin. When the doorbell rang, it was 30 minutes past 10. No normal person would stop by so late, so it was obvious who it was. Without using the intercom, or even looking through the peephole, I turned the lock to open the door and invite her in. Oh, I guess this must have been after I've seen his room. The sight of her there came as no surprise. Shin! The familiar face from my childhood looked up at me and beamed. Wanna go see a movie? Without so much as a hello or an excuse me, she barged her way into my house. She lived nearby and was a year older than me. The Myoga University blazer she wore meant she was on her way home from school, and the guitar case slung across her back answered my questions as to why she would still be out this late in her uniform. After practicing with her bandmates, she probably met up with them somewhere. The look on her face showed how much fun she had, and my heart twinged a little. Why all of a sudden? Even though I sounded irritated, she was completely unfazed. Someone gave me a ticket, but only one. I feel lonely by myself, so I wanted to know if you'd come with me. I'll pay for half, okay? I'm sure you'll like it. The movie title on the ticket was of the season's #1 blockbuster, an epic space fantasy movie. Is that Shin's thing? It was heavily marketed on its flashy SFX and action, so I knew it wasn't something I'd hate. But I pushed the ticket back with a sigh. Isn't there anyone else besides me? Why don't you go with one of those girls? The reason I refused was because I didn't want other people to look at us and think that we were a couple. Well, I guess this must have been before we were dating. To still be hanging out with a childhood friend at this age was embarrassing, and I was still immature enough to be nervous at the thought of seeing a movie with a girl. And because I knew it was inconsequential to her, I was even more resistant to it. It seemed to hold no other meaning to her, as she told me. All my other friends have Christmas Eve plans with their boyfriends on the 24th, so there's no one else to go with. Don't you see what that implies, going to see a movie with a guy on Christmas Eve? But of course she wouldn't have thought of that. I probably wouldn't have either, if this were a couple of months ago. Why would you accept a ticket for a movie on such an awkward day, and just one? Was it a guy who gave you that, or a girl? A guy. Don't you think he has a ticket for the seat next to you? Did he ask you to go with him? She looked uncomfortable for a moment. He didn't say anything like that to me. I guess maybe I thought he might have meant it that way, but... But? When he gave me the ticket, I said, "Oh, this movie looks like a movie Shin would like," and just left it at that. Why? Well, isn't that date a little suspicious? It was very suspicious. The guy definitely had his intentions. If he meant it the way it sounded, it would have been awkward, so I just blurted out your name. Sorry. You shouldn't avoid the issue like that. Isn't it better to turn him down properly? I couldn't help but feel sympathy for the man who worked up the courage to ask her out. She scrunched her shoulders uneasily. Turn him down? I couldn't do that. I want to believe he didn't mean it that way. He's part of the band after all. Ah, I get it now, I thought to myself. My stomach dropped a bit.
The image of her standing and singing in front of the band was so explosively powerful that it consumed my mind, even knowing all of her flaws from childhood. If it was like that for me, it's not surprising that a guy who saw her singing every day would have those kind of feelings for her. But she simply wasn't prepared to accept those feelings, and to protect his feelings and their friendship, she pretended as if his invitation wasn't real and asked me instead. I got it. I'll go. I took the ticket from her and checked the time and seat number. I'll call the theater to see if the seat number next to you is open. Let me borrow this for a sec.
Yes, thank you.
I felt a pang in my heart when I saw her smile in relief and buried it deep down, turning my eyes away from her. The fact that I was now starting to be aware of her as a woman was something even I was conscious of. I was even aware of my jealousy towards the person who bought the ticket. He was on his way to heartbreak, but even so, he was cherished enough not to be lost as a friend. He spent so much more time next to her than I have. The bigger difference was that he was thought of more as a man, where being with him on Christmas Eve was wrong.
Aww. So Shin thinks I don't see him enough as a man. I can see him on Christmas Eve, and I know it won't be a date.
Yes, that seat is fine, thank you. Days later, that seat suddenly became open again, and I was able to reserve it for myself. A part of me felt sorry for him, but another part of me thought of him as a rival. I checked the time around 6 p.m. Although she was probably in the middle of practice, I gave her a call.
I can't come to the phone right now, but...
I let out a sigh as the message played. Then I told her I got the ticket. After I hung up, I wondered whether its original owner was right next to her now, listening to her sing. He might be looking at her with mixed feelings, checking himself with a stiff smile. I could never take his position. I pulled the strap of the bass guitar against the wall and plucked at the strings, turning my ear towards each deep pitch, but the sound that my untrained fingers spun out seemed hopelessly cloudy to me. The city was soaked in lights, and the distant sound of choirs. In the alley at the back door of the cafe where she worked, she stood, waiting for me. She wore a deep red dress, the color of wine, and I wondered if it was a conscious decision based on the day. The bag on her arm, decorated with white roses, shone in the dim alley light. Above her chest sat a rose-shaped pendant, presumably matched to her bag. My already embarrassed tread slowed to half, and I looked over her clothes from top to bottom. What's with the outfit?
Oh, is it weird?
It wasn't weird. It was a perfect outfit for meeting a guy on Christmas Eve. Almost too perfect. It was unbearably cute.
When I told my friends that I was going to see a movie with you, they all told me to wear this and that.
Most likely, her friends were counting on a story of love blossoming between longtime childhood friends. They probably thought it was amusing that our relationship could change dramatically as a result of this date.
I told them that it was weird for me to dress up like this when it was just you, but...
I wanted to ask what was so weird about it, that it was Christmas Eve, so dressing up wasn't something out of the ordinary. But I couldn't tell whether I wanted to say it because of feelings of love, or because seeing an old friend like this was surprising. My feelings were uncertain, even to me.
Do I look kind of strange?
No, you're fine. I hid my true feelings behind a short reply. My attitude towards her couldn't change now. Forget about that. Let's go to the theater.
Right.
I left the alleyway, and she obediently followed. As we entered the main street, the once distant clamor was now spread before us. It was impossible to not feel annoyed at the bustle of the holiday. What annoyed me more was the sight of a man waiting for us in front of the theater. Guitar case slung over his shoulder, leaning against the theater wall, he spotted us and stood up straight as if startled. I didn't have to ask who it was. I knew. It was the guy who originally asked her out for tonight.
Sorry, I just needed to come here.
I was sorry too. She stood motionless next to me.
Is that the kid? Your childhood friend Shin?
It ticked me off slightly to be called that kid, but it wasn't a lie that I was younger.
It's nice to meet you, I said. I've seen you on stage before. Oh, you came to see the concert? Thanks. I didn't come to see her concert. I came for my friend. I looked at him silently with contempt, but as I watched him, he appeared to be even more dense than I first considered him and showed no signs of noticing. Close childhood friends. It's kinda nice. Yeah. But a movie on Christmas Eve? If anyone saw you, they'd think you were dating. It was she who voiced her dissent. But we're not. Hearing her deny it so matter-of-factly was a sudden blow to my heart. If that's the case, then does that mean that I can still hope? Of course you can't, I thought. Oh, well... You kind of avoided it before, but I do want to say something to you. The truth is, I want to... Shin, we better get going or we'll be late. Hey, a bit obvious, don't you think? I muttered as we turned. But I don't think anyone heard me. Pulling my arm along with hers, she shook off the man running after her and headed towards the theater entrance. Wait, I'm not finished yet. Sorry, I'll see you at band practice. If you won't stop and listen, I'll just say it. I'm sorry, we're going to be late. The thing is, I really like... I was the one to stop in my tracks now. She was walking at a hurried pace and stumbled from being pulled back so suddenly. Shin! I pretended I couldn't hear the reproach in her voice. She doesn't want to hear it, all right? The man trailing after us also stopped moving at my cold words. All she'll do is turn you down, so stop pushing it when you know it'll only upset her. It's disgraceful. Why, you... Also, she's mine. Figure that much out. But I already said we weren't going out. You're going to confuse him. This time, she was silent. I was lying, of course, but it was the most effective way of dispensing of him here. See you. I took her hand from my arm and held on to it. Though it was sudden, she didn't complain or show any surprise. That the man had stopped following us was probably what she was happiest about. She looked up at me with an expression on her face that said thank you. Damn it, I spat inwardly. This can't be. The man who had been turned down so unceremoniously was actually ahead of me in her eyes. He was considered a man. If he were the one with his tight grip on hers, she probably wouldn't be smiling at him like this. Even though I lied to him out of possessiveness, from the look of gratitude on her face, I saw no trace of doubt. In her eyes, I only saw trust. And I knew she didn't regard me as a man. Oh, thank you so much, Shin. To think, though, of us being a couple. My irritation grew at the way she said it, so carefree. No matter how close we were, no matter that we were on a date on Christmas Eve, she felt safe because she thought I was safe. I was like family. If we were family, it would mean that as the years passed, we would grow distant. I wondered how long she was planning to keep things this way. Even if this guy wasn't her type, if someone who was were to show up, would she be happier with him? It was natural for us to always be together now, but one day, we would go our separate ways. If this distance didn't change, nothing would. If I asked you seriously to go out with me, what would you do? Hearing this, she looked genuinely puzzled. Do you really want a girlfriend that badly? I'm sure you'll find a really nice girl, Shin. It was the worst possible answer. She didn't even think of us that way in the slightest. I'm being supported in dating another girl. That's not the worst possible answer. She could have said something like, or she could have laughed. Or she could have said, what? You're being ridiculous. Or just ignored it. That could have been worse. Forget it. Let's just go see the movie. Huh? I tightened my grip on her hand. Trying to change the relationship we built was probably not a good idea. If I tried to bridge the gap between us, it could potentially ruin everything. No matter how painful that might be, I will not let go of this hand. The day when I would no longer be able to suppress these growing feelings inside of me didn't feel so far away. So he knew at that point that it wouldn't stay that way forever. Huh. Well, that's gonna be 2 and 2, then I guess Ukyo's video is gonna be short by itself.
Or maybe I'll make a fool of myself and play rock, paper, scissors and air hockey on here for you guys. Fool around a little bit to make that video longer. The short stories are okay. I mean, it's nice seeing... I like seeing the inner workings of the guys' minds, seeing what they were thinking when they were falling in love with me and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. But, I wish we had the pictures. I wish we had the guys' avatars showing up on screen and stuff while we were doing this. I really miss being able to see them during the story. I don't know why they wrote them this way. Now it really is an audiobook, without even the illustrations. It's not even a graphic audiobook at this point, it's just regular audiobook. Alright, well, join me for tomorrow for Iki and Toma stories. Hope to see you there or in some of my other videos. And I'd be so grateful for any likes, comments, subscriptions, or shares with your friends to show some support. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all health, happiness, and safety. Dirili signing out. Bye-bye, everybody.